Beast Wars Season 2, Episode 1, The Aftermath. Now, of course, this is the beginning of Season 2, and this is where the show starts to really, change things up. Like, the first season we had, if I remember right, it was about 22 episodes or something like that, and it ends with this crazy explosion. Optimus is sent into space. He goes up to destroy the alien device. It ends up being destroyed, but unfortunately he is destroyed in the process, and everything changes after that. It starts off, it's pretty much the opening is the ending to the last episode. Like, pretty much the entire opening, outside of like a couple of clips, are the last two episodes of the first season, which is kind of funny. But everything else is fairly new. We get to see, a couple of the new looks, I guess, of the Transformers in the series. But it starts off right where things left off, and it's just like Optimus is gone. The alien device has been destroyed, but so is Optimus. Megatron, of course, is really happy. The Maximals are not so happy. And then, after this little sigh of both, happiness and sadness, there's this giant energy wave that shoots basically through the entire planet. And so it hits both the Maximal base as well as the Predacon base, and that's when things start to change, because this season introduced the new version of the Transformers known as the Transmetals. And a couple of different characters got new looks, some characters didn't. So we have, at least for characters that stay the same, we have Rhinox, Dinobot, Air Razor, let's see, totally freaking his freaking name, with the white tiger, Tigatron. I'm like, I can't think of his name for the life of me right now. So they stay the same. On the Predacon side, Waspinator, Blackarachnia, and that's it, I believe. Yeah, I think they're the only two that stay the same. Everyone else either gets changed or dies. I'm not sure if it's a permanent death, but it might be because they fell in lava. So when this rate hits, on the Maximal side of things, with Dinobot and Rhinox having been knocked out in the season finale, they were inside the recovery pod still when like this new ray kind of hit the planet. So they weren't affected because they were inside the pods, and there's really no explanation given. So I kind of had to make up my own, but I have to assume that the reason Air Razor and Tigatron weren't affected by this thing, outside of the fact that they were the newer characters, and it was like, well, let's not change them. I have to assume that it's because they were newer compared to the other Transformers who, were originally on the planet before, like they weren't in stasis pods and they didn't scan the planet. And Tigatron is always in his beast form anyway, so maybe that was a huge part of it for him, where he's hardly even affected by, energon signals and, pulses and stuff. So they don't end up changing, no real explanation given. But this is where Cheetor and Rat Trap end up getting their new forms. As far as the Predacons go, Megatron, of course, changes for... He has a huge change. Megatron and Cheetor have the biggest changes out of all the characters, because they become flyers. And I always thought that was really cool. So they change. They both become flyers. Waspinator, during this crazy situation, he actually falls into the regeneration pit. So he's kind of like Rhinox and Dinobot. He gets saved from this energy blast. Unfortunately, Scorponok and Pterosaur they don't fall into a nice little pit. They fall into lava and seemingly die. Like, the rays hit like Pterosaur's hand as he's falling into the lava, but I would have to assume that they died. I don't know if that's going to be permanent or if something's going to happen where they end up coming back and they're fused together, or they have like crazy lava forms or something. I don't know, but at this point they died. Like, they fell into hot lava and they melted. That's always been like the one thing that actually kills them, is falling into lava and they melt. So I'm guessing that's what happened. Like, Scorponok and Pterosaur totally got killed off in this first episode, and it was pretty crazy. But Megatron ends up getting changed. Blackarachnia is actually still okay. She's inside the base with the Maximals still. So she actually doesn't end up being changed. She gets knocked out. And once again, I think it has to be the fact that she was added to the roster after, the whole stasis pod thing. So I think it's, like, that's the only explanation I could possibly give. Because everyone else was affected. Everyone that was, like an original Transformer was affected. Because even Inferno is inside the base. He's just locked up. He, as well as Tarantulas. But Tarantula still has the mind link inside of Blackarachnia, so he forces her to go get his body, and he does change. Like, he's curled up like a dead spider, like in a ball, actually, when she finds him, and she flips this switch, and Inferno looks exactly the same, but Tarantulas has changed. Like, his body was transmutated, so he's different. All the newer Transformers are the same, and some of them I like and some of them I don't like. This is kind of the one thing I was dreading, honestly, for this season. Because it's like, man, I know they're going to change. And I always kind of just like their original forms. I was never the biggest fan of their changes, especially Optimus. And, what happens, with his character later on. Sorry if that's a spoiler, but it's Optimus. But the way their characters looked, I was never the biggest fan of the changes. And watching this, it was like, alright, I can at least appreciate some of them. Like, Megatron's I don't really like in his animal form because he looks really weird. Because he's got like a brown body now instead of the like purple Barney looking body. So he looks kind of weird because he's brown, but his head is still purple. And that's what I never liked about that thing. It just looks so weird to have like a purple head, but the rest of his body is like brown or like tan pretty much. And I'm like, that it just doesn't really fit right to me. It just looks really weird. Now his, regular, like his robot form, that actually looks pretty cool. Like, instead of having the normal tail, he kind of has like a laser cannon tail. Like, it's got like rings on it, and it has like almost like a pincer at the end, and he like charges it up now. Like, he pumps it and it makes like this charging effect and the whole arm glows. And then he starts to shoot, and I'm like, that I think looks pretty cool. He also gains wheels. Like, that's one of the big things that they add. Like, this is kind of them going from Beast Wars closer to like actual original G1 Transformers, where some of the characters actually get wheels, and they added like, car sound effects, like Rat Trap. That was like his whole thing, and I thought I wouldn't like it, but I'm actually okay with this thing, because the only thing I don't like is that when he transforms into his maximized mode, the face, like the rat face, is always grinning on his back, and it's so hard. It's like, it's a little thing, but it always just distracts me a little bit, because it's always just grinning, like it's like grinning, gritting its teeth, and I'm like, that just looks a little weird to me. But other than that, it's totally fine. I think it's fine. Cheetor, I actually like his thing. I thought he looked cool as like just a normal cheetah, but I actually think he looks cool with the new colors, and I forgot how he looked. Tarantulas, I forgot how he looked too, but I actually like his. His looks really sweet. The only weird thing is that in his beast mode now, he has like this weird, it's almost like a beak mouth sort of thing. And I've watched a couple episodes ahead, so I didn't notice it until like the most recent episode I watched. I watched like 4 episodes of this second season. But that's like the only weird thing about him. He also has a wheel, so he can drive now. So like that's one of the things that they added. So Megatron got wheels. He can also fly now. Cheetor can fly now, which I thought was really cool. He's trying to get control of it and stuff. Rat Trap has gained wheels, so now he can move way faster than he could initially, because he has like, he's almost like a hot rod type of car, because he has like the actual little pipes sticking off his butt pretty much, and so he can actually drive really, really fast. So it is kind of cool. It's just some of them I don't like as much. Like Megatron and his beast mode just looks super weird. He's got a big purple head, and everything else is just like brown. I'm like, that just looks so weird. But his normal state is fine. Like, it still looks a little weird because it's like he's all brown and stuff, and then there's like just a tiny bit of purple with the dinosaur head on his chest. And it's like, it still looks a little weird, but he looks cool in his maximized mode, or his, I don't know what to even call it. I guess it's still a maximized mode, but he still looks cool that way. He just looks really weird as a giant, he's a T-Rex with a purple head, and the whole body is just, it's just, everything's one color except for his head. It's just a different color, and it's such a contrast from purple to tan. So it's a weird thing, but it's still fine. I thought it was pretty cool. And then this, I've been talking about, ever since things started because of what I remembered from the series. But it is talked about in this episode. It's finally kind of revealed that the Transformers, the Beast Wars currently are taking place on Earth. So I thought it was cool that they finally had that big reveal. Once again, sorry if that was a spoiler, but not that big of a deal. But they are on Earth, and Waspinator realizes it, and he's like, it's one moon now, and he mentions like some symbols and stuff. He's like, I know what it means. And Dinobot happened to be headed, to the base, because once again, any random thing happens that like even gives a slight advantage, it's full on war. So of course, after Megatron changes, he takes everybody. He's like, we're gonna go kill all the Maximals. That was like the whole point of the first episode. So he does that, but Dinobot takes off from the Maximal base and he goes to the Predacon base, and he's going and he finds Waspinator and they have a bit of a confrontation. While this is going on, Blackarachnia is still being controlled by Tarantulas because he wants his body, because his body's all messed up and it was from the last season. So he's like, alright, basically, you're going to go back to base, you're going to go to the lab, you're going to get some stuff, and that way I can transfer my consciousness from you to my new body and I'll, come back to life. So she has to drag his body from the Maximal base all the way to the Predacon base, and Dinobot finds Waspinator and he's like, I realize things too. We're actually on Earth right now. So he goes in for the 2 golden discs and he tricks Waspinator. He's like, you know what? Why don't we team up? We get the discs together and then we'll both rule and we can change the future together if we want to. And Waspinator falls for this, and Dinobot just throws him into this force field because it's like an electrical field protecting the 2 golden discs. And he just throws him right into it, and he just takes the full force of this defense system, and it like disrupts the field so he can just grab the discs out of the air. And Waspinator's just being electrocuted, and he is like these lasers are like holding him in place. It's almost like it looked kind of like Ghostbusters. And then this little arm starts to come out, and it picks him up, and it kind of takes like bits and pieces off of him, and it drops him into this little like ditch, and then the thing just crushes him into a cube like a car compactor. So he gets crushed into a little cube, and then that's when around the time Blackarachnia shows up, and she's like, what the heck is going on? So she and Dinobot get into a fight, and it was kind of funny because he kind of lost it when she showed up, and instead of having like a full-on battle, he kind of just went crazy and just started shooting all over the place, and he just like blasting holes in the wall, and then he just like jumped out the wall and he took off. So she was screwed because she didn't have the disc. Tarantulas is like, what's going on? And it's like, well, Dinobot just took the 2 golden discs. Waspinator's screwed, and he's like, oh well, that sucks, but there should be extra information that you can get. So he has her go to this computer, Megatron's computer, basically, where he has all the logs and everything. But there's like a slight disconnect between the information, so she's no longer linked to him for like a split second, and she's able to get all the information and then destroy it, while he's not linked to her, and then he gets his body back. So he gets his body back. She gets all this information and she like triple encodes it or whatever so that she doesn't reveal it to him. So at this point, it's Waspinator, Dinobot, and Blackarachnia who have this information that is very important. I don't think she knows about them being on Earth or anything like that. She just has the information from the the golden disc. But Dinobot has this little moment where he's like, do I change the future? Like, I know what's to come. And it's like this weird little philosophical moment too, where it's like, can I even change the future, or are we destined to follow this path? Is it like all set in stone, or can I change the future and rewrite history and make my own destiny, or am I meant to follow the destiny that has already been written out for me? And it was like this really weird philosophical moment for his character. But ultimately he decides, until the time comes where I know what I can do, I'll basically hide the discs. So he hides the discs in like this random location, and it's just that's gonna obviously come back way down the line. But it's a cool episode, you know. And then the rest of it, like outside of their story, it's pretty much just I can fly now, so I'm gonna go fight them, and I'm gonna take everybody with me. So they have a battle, and it kind of balances out where nothing really happens, and it's like they have a little standoff, and it's like they go back to their own corners. Everyone goes back to base, and it's like, man, things are really crazy because Optimus is gone. Megatron can fly now. Rat Trap and Cheetor have changed. Some of the other Predacons have changed. So things are crazy, but the Beast Wars aren't over. They just went to the next step, and when this episode ends, it actually ends in like this. It's almost like a desert graveyard, and there are two stasis pods that are activated because they crash, and like one hand just like shoots out of the stasis pod like a hand coming out of the ground, and that's how the episode ends. So there are two new Transformers coming into the series, and they're just in like this desert plain, and they pop right out, and they're just in their normal modes. We don't actually see anything about how they look, but it was a cool first episode. Like I said, I was kind of dreading the imminent change because I knew it was coming, and I just like the original beast modes and the original maximized forms, but I think I'll be fine with it. I think I can get over it. Like I said, Rat Trap, it's a little weird because he's got the wheels now and stuff, but I'm like, not that big of a deal. Cheetor, I forgot how much I actually liked his, and Tarantulas, when I saw it, I was like, oh, I used to have that toy, and so I thought it was kind of funny. I was like, oh, I actually had that version. I always, when I saw his character, I was like, I remember having a Tarantulas toy, and maybe it was the original version, but his looks so similar outside of the wheel that he gets and some of like the little golden parts. He actually looks pretty much the same. He just looks really shiny, and he has like a wheel now. So he looks pretty much the same, just like really cool. And so does Rat Trap. When he's in his like maximized form, he actually looks exactly the same, except he has the little wheels on his back, and his color scheme is a little bit different. Like Cheetor looks totally different, even in his beast mode. I mean, so does Rat Trap, but he just looks different both ways. Like he looks completely different. I guess he still has the same design too, technically, when he's in his maximized form. But the color scheme is so different, it just doesn't even look the same. Like, for Rat Trap, it's like, oh, they swapped gold for silver, and it's basically just one color, and he's got a little bit of blue and a little bit of orange, and that's pretty much it. But Cheetor is like, man, he was just orange and blue, and it went from orange and blue with, the spots and everything to like white and turquoise and some other color. He just looks totally different. Like, I wish I could find a picture in here somewhere. But he just looks so different. It's insane. But it's actually pretty cool. Like, I like his. I like Rat Trap's. Like I said, Megatron is the one that really gets me, though, where it's like, he just looks so weird as a T-Rex with just a brown T-Rex with a big purple head. It's like, that just looks so weird. His head changed, too. It's not the same sort of T-Rex head, either. It's a little bit different. Something else I noticed, the animation is a little bit better in this season, and it's really cool. They have a couple of new techniques where they kind of do like up close on some of the character faces, but there's still other characters in the background. I thought that was cool. It's kind of like just with the normal camera, like you just focus on someone who's in the foreground, and then it switches perspective, and then the people in the background end up coming into focus when they start to speak. And I'm like, that's really cool, because they didn't have that at all in the first season, and it just looks a little bit updated, which makes sense. I would assume this came a couple of months after the original season when it was originally airing. So maybe a couple of months after the first season, so they had time to really develop, especially after, like 20 episodes. They had time to develop, like, alright, we can do this, we can figure this out, and, change things up a little bit. But it looks very cool. One thing I certainly noticed with the transformations this season, they always had it before, but this season, especially with, the transmetal transformations, something about that, like, normally it's like, oh, this thing, it like they transform and it's like, oh, this part just pops out of nowhere and stuff. They kind of changed that. They still have that a little bit, like Megatron's tail like basically flips from his back to his hand. So they kind of have that, which is kind of similar to the original G1 stuff. If you watch like the Constructicons, how they transform, parts just come off of them and then float and then come back in. So it's like they've had that before, but I think it was with Cheetor. just the way he transforms is like every part seriously looks like it moved into another position. Didn't look like something just disappeared and reappeared. It looked like he actually completely transformed, and I was like, that actually looked really great. It looked like every piece actually had somewhere to go compared to, oh, he changed and this part like popped up or this part moved and spun or something a little like that. But really cool first episode. Like I said, I did watch, I think I watched like 4 episodes so far, so of course I'm going to get right into those reviews. But it was a great start to the season, and things get, things are looking interesting. We have Dinobot and him possibly changing the future, and we have new Transformers coming in. We have the Transmetals now, their whole new thing with Cheetor and Rat Trap and Megatron, and the death apparently of Scorponok and Pterosaur, which really sucks to me because I like those characters, but we'll see if they end up coming back. Of course, as usual, if you guys have any comments, please put them down in the comment section below, and of course, thanks for watching.